Okay, Heather.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
I will get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, Simplify the Holidays. My name is Heather Creven, and I am the Executive Director of the Nebraska Recycling Council. The Nebraska Recycling Council's mission is to maximize the economic and environmental benefits of resource recovery in Nebraska and waste nothing. So a few housekeeping items. During the webinar, you can type your questions into the question box as they come to mind. We will wait until the end of the discussion to address any of the questions that you have. A recording of this webinar will be emailed out to all registrants, and it will also be available following the webinar on our website under resources on our webinar page. This webinar is held in partnership with the Center of Biological Diversity, and our speakers today will share tips, tricks, and hacks for having low waste and less stressful holiday season and other special occasions. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce our webinar speakers. Kelley Dennings is a campaigner with the nonprofit Center for Biological Diversity. Prior to the center, she worked as a local government recycling coordinator and for NC's Department of Environment and Natural Resource, Keep America Beautiful, and the American Forest Foundation. She holds a bachelor's degree in natural resources from NC State and a master's degree in public health from the University of South Florida. Sarah Baillie is a population and sustainability organizer at the Center for the Biological Diversity, and she leads outreach efforts to help people understand how the pressure of our growing human population and high level of consumption hurt wildlife and habitat. She wrote the Wildlife Friendly Wedding Guide and manages the So Kind Registry. Sarah holds a bachelor's degree in wildlife conservation from the University of Delaware, a master's in the biology of Villanova University, and a master's of public administration from the University of Arizona. Adoma Addo is a senior at Yale University studying environmental science and global health. With a keen interest in sustainability, Adoma's research focuses on the nexus between environmental, social, and economical justice. She's been working with the Center for Biological Diversity's Population and Sustainability Program for over a year. Belinda Chiu is a public health professional, environmental justice activist, and a community educator passionate about designing a healthy blueprint for individuals to live with the environment in mind and become change makers in their communities. She currently works as a senior associate for zero waste consulting firm Think Zero LLC and a social media manager for the sustainability podcast Trash Talking with Eco Warriors. Thank you again for attending. And with that being said, I will turn the presentation over to our first speaker. There might be a slight delay before she begins.
All right. Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Thumbs up from a few of you. Perfect. Okay. So thank you so much, Heather, for the invitation to speak. All right, I'll just say a few things about myself and then we're gonna open it up with a poll. But yeah, my name is Kelley Dennings. My pronouns are she, her. And I spent about 15 years working in waste, forestry, and conservation. So really excited to be here talking about this. This was actually part of my master's thesis. And I want to acknowledge that I'm on stolen Choctaw land where many individuals face displacement and suffering, and I hope one day they receive restorative measures. And for those that are unable to see me today, I am a petite or short, white, middle-aged white woman with long brown hair standing in my living room. So we are going to have a number of kind of interactive parts to this presentation. So while you may be multitasking, hopefully you will peek up every once in a while to take a poll or type something into the chat for us. So with that, I'm going to start us off with a quick poll. I think hopefully Heather will help us launch this poll. So, all right. Now I can't see what's happening, so hopefully, Heather, you'll let me know. But the poll is hopefully asking whether you are a nonprofit, for-profit, government, school or university, an individual. We're curious to see who we have with us today. Helps us gauge our comments.
Correct. And it looks like so far we have 50% are school, a university, we have 33% nonprofit, and we have 17% individual. And 75% have voted.
Have voted. All right. Schools and universities are showing up. The nonprofits behind us. All right. Well, thank you for that. Are people still seeing my screen, or do we close that so that I can see people's faces? Oh, organizer must close poll to enable screen sharing. Do you want to do that, Heather? Or are we good? Okay. All right. My presenter, co-presenter. Okay. So there's me. So just first, quick introduction to the center. Our National Conservation Organization works for a combination of science, the law, activism, and native media, which is wildlife, the wild places they need to thrive. So on the screen, you are seeing all of our different programs. As you heard, we're in the Population Sustainability Program. Belinda, she's in of ours today. But yeah, we are excited to talk to you since behind the holidays. So why are we here to talk about Simplifying the Holidays and other celebrations? Well, the United States is 5% of the world's population, but uses 30% of all resources, creates 30% of all waste, and emits 15% of the world's carbon emissions. And while the average American has an environmental footprint 60% larger than most Europeans, it's nearly 700% larger than the average person in most African countries, which is what you're seeing here depicted on the screen. So you are all probably very familiar with this graph from the EPA, or one more specific to your community. But food and plastics are big categories listed on this chart. And we know that about 40% of all food is thrown away, and we generate a lot of it during the holidays. And for plastics, we know that about 50% of plastics produced is packaging, which is often just used once and then discarded. And this too increases during the giving season. So the center published a report in 2020 based off almost 1,000 national survey responses. And in that, we learned that 3 out of 4 people in the United States think the average American consumes too many natural resources.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, that's the second time this has happened to me. I don't know why the phone keeps dropping. All right. In that same survey, we asked people about their current behaviors and their willingness to change their behavior. 67% are currently reducing their personal consumption, and 82% were willing to do that, but 31% needed more information. However, it isn't that cut and dry. Perhaps you've heard about our recent supply chain issues. The combination of workers sick with COVID, lack of shipping containers, labor shortages, natural disasters caused by climate change are all contributing to the thinking that traditional material gifts are going to be hard to find this year. So depicted on the screen is a graphic from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality that shows how global supply chains can be problematic, the common denominator being transportation. So experts predict that this holiday season will be affected by these supply chain issues, even to the point where buying new but environmentally friendly gifts may be difficult. So the supply chain issues may jumpstart some systemic alterations to how we produce and consume goods that last beyond the holiday season. We need to look for new business models that shift to closed material loops, things like extended producer responsibility or the solidarity economy, right? And I don't need to tell this group that waste systems built around reuse, refill, repair, borrowing, sharing, and recycling and composting create local jobs and resilient, equitable communities. But this is a both-end situation. So not only do we need these systems level changes, but at the individual level, we need to instill societal norms that nourish connection, community, sustainability, and health through a diverse and equitable lens. And we hope to really share some ideas with you about that using the campaigns on the screen at least. But right off the bat, I want to acknowledge that talking about consuming less isn't necessarily an equitable request. And we like to talk about this in relationship to conscious consumption. So some people do need to consume less, some need to consume differently, and some folks, even in the United States, need to consume more. And that may be in relationship to food, clothing, and shelter, but even things that bring folks joy. So we hope to instill today, though once somebody's immediate physical needs are met, perhaps additional material things don't always bring happiness and joy. So we're going to go through some of these websites that you're seeing on the screen. I'm going to try to type them in the chat here. I am fully allowing you to multitask in this relationship where, or in this regard, where as we walk through some of these, go ahead and, play around on these websites while we're talking through them with you. So we have a lot of rapid fire presentations today with a number of personal stories peppered in. I'm now going to turn it over to Adoma, I believe. Let me just make sure. Yep. Who's going to walk through our Simplify the Holidays campaign. Then Sarah's going to talk about So Kind and wildlife friendly weddings. After that, she's going to bring up Belinda, who's going to talk about low waste entertaining and decorating. And if we have time at the end, I will come back to talk about experiential gift giving. Okay, over to you, Adoma.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelley. I also thank you, Heather, who introduced me at the very beginning. My name is Adoma, as you know. I'm currently on stolen Quinnipiac land. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Simplify the Holidays website and that larger campaign, but specifically walking you through the why behind the campaign and some of the reasons why we focus on it. So first, I wanted to start off with a question in the chat. How do you feel about the winter holidays? What emotion primarily comes to mind? Feel free to type your answers in the chat and then we can have a little discussion. Stress, I definitely feel that too, Kelley. Very busy. Warm and fuzzy is definitely a good one, Belinda. Can leave a couple more minutes for people to type in, a couple more seconds to type in, and then we'll move on to our discussion. tired. Definitely feel that. Alrighty, thank you so much for sharing those results. And if you see any more trickle through, we always appreciate them. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the stats and facts behind this campaign, some of the work we've done this past summer before I go through the full walkthrough of the website. So this past summer, we updated an old but often cited statistic that suggests that more waste is generated during the holiday season. The primary issue with this statistic is that we couldn't find the original citation with the data. Thanks to the generosity of several local governments throughout the country, we aggregated trash, recycling, yard waste, and food waste data for the 2017, 2018, and 2019 calendar years, and that data was reported in tons. We assume that any variations in market level data when aggregated are representative of the national trend. And so as you can see on the screen, we have this statistic presented saying that on average, Americans generate 23% more tons of waste in December than any other month. And this really suggests that there is a sort of issue with the closed loop of the way that holiday traditions happen, sort of prompting us to reconsider and try and figure out innovative solutions for how we can reduce our waste burden. And you can see that as well in that little graphic with the airplane on the side. Next slide, please. So a key finding in other parts of our research was that people are willing and interested in simplifying their holiday traditions. In one study that we found, it's found that 66% of holiday shoppers will pay more for sustainable products, with younger generations leading the way. And similarly, according to a national survey, more than 75%, 3 in 4 Americans, wish that the holidays were less materialistic, so suggesting that there's a real interest on the market, as well as just acceptance of the potential for a simplified and easier holiday tradition. Next slide. So what can we do about it? Our findings really emphasize that when people talk about why they love the holidays, also really echoed in the chat, they usually describe spending time with family, eating good food, having fun, and relaxing. Those are all of the hallmarks of a good holiday experience. It's time for holidays with wildlife-friendly gifts and traditions that increase connection, save money, and help the environment, while simultaneously creating meaningful connections and new traditions. Simplifying holiday traditions offers many opportunities to connect family and your local community. And the Simplify the Holidays website, which I'll talk about in a bit, is a great way to get started with the numerous different ways you, your family, your friends, and others can reinvent traditions to make them more impactful on you and less so on the environment. And so in the next couple slides, I'm going to be walking through different parts of the Simplify the Holidays website and pointing to different things that can get you started on simplifying the holidays. Yeah, so the website really serves to provide you with various tools and resources to create low waste holiday traditions in your own home and in your friend's home, and information that you can share with others, including social media kits, infographics, and all these other great tools. As you can see, the website is up on the screen, and Kelley sent it in the chat not too long ago. It's pretty easy, simplifytheholidays.org, and feel free to look through it as I speak. I'll be pointing out many things that you'll be able to navigate on the screen. So please feel free to take a look at it. Next slide. On the website, you'll be able to find alternative gift guides, information on creating earth-friendly traditions, as well as deep dives into various holiday seasons, for example, the winter holidays. We also have draft social media posts that you can share, as well as guides for food waste reduction that are all available in different sections of the website. As a campaign, we're also willing to help out with newsletter and blog content, as well as with this event, participate in virtual speakers. Yeah, and on the next part, I'll be walking through the holiday specifics. So we have been curating different pages that focus on specific holidays while trying to be inclusive and considerate of different, the multifaceted ways in which people celebrate holiday traditions. And we're of course non-denominational, and we incorporate different kinds of holidays. that can all be found on this website. For example, with the winter holidays, you can find different stats and facts as well as op-eds about with information about how to minimize waste during the winter holidays. And each of these, there's also separate pages about simpler entertaining, which is a more generic way to minimize your impact during a holiday season. Next slide. The final thing that I'll share with you about the website is our gift guide, which will lead you with the different links to a variety of different Pinterest boards with lots of ideas for how you can give gifts in a more sustainable and low waste way. For example, if you go to our DIY handmade gifts board, you can find lots of different how-tos and DIY tips. For example, one that I really love is upcycling t-shirts into a quilt. If you have lots of t-shirts from sports tournaments or something else, it's a really great way to like upcycle and reinvent something that might just be lying around in your house. And it also is a really meaningful gift. So each of these boards really provides you a different way of, a variety of different ways, excuse me, of giving out gifts and really reconsidering what it means to give gifts. Finally, I wanted to talk about another kind of a gift. And if you are still interested in wrapping something, in our work, we really stress how environmental and social justice are deeply intertwined and go hand in hand. So if you're still interested in wrapping something, you can really take the opportunity to give a good habit, for example, or support local businesses as well as Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned businesses in your local community, supporting your local circular economies as well as local reuse organizations, really focusing on the local and considering the transportation impacts that Kelley was talking about earlier on. So there are numerous ways that the Simplify the Holidays website, as well as many of the guides on that website, can be used to help simplify and make these holiday traditions more meaningful. And that's all from me. Thank you so much. I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Adoma. So yeah, I am Sarah Baillie. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a average sized white woman in her 30s, talking to you from my home office. Next. So we have another poll for you to gauge how common and familiar alternative gift giving is. So we want to ask you, what types of alternative gifts have you given? And you can check all that apply. And we've got the categories of charity, experience, handmade, secondhand, and time and skill. So Heather, would we be able to launch that poll? I don't know if I'm supposed to, I saw the last poll, but I do not
I have
see
not seen it. I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
I'm also wondering if they're going to be able to check all that apply. So if people can't, that's okay too.
Okay.
How's it coming, Heather? Should we move on and maybe come back? I'm not sure.
Heather, if you are talking to us, it does look like the icon says you're on mute. I don't know if you were already responding to us.
Oh, sorry. I am trying to get it to launch and it is not cooperating with me. So yes, Kelley, let's move on and come back.
Okay. And just whenever it pops up, just break into Sarah. She'll be fine.
Okay. Sorry, Sarah.
No worries. We can go to the next slide then, Kelly. So the SoCon Registry platform is a great way to facilitate alternative gift giving. And this is a platform we've had for a little over a year now, and we acquired it from another organization called New Dream that wanted to use this to kind of help reduce consumerism. Unfortunately, when they had to shut down, they were nice enough to offer it to us because they wanted it to be a resource that still existed in the world. Again, to help encourage like less consumerism, the motto is more fun, less stuff. And then if we go to the next slide, we'll see how it works when you add a gift. So pretty much like any other wish list or registry platform, you can add your own gifts. And this is fully customizable to whatever you want. And it is broken out by the different types of gifts of gifts of time and skill, experience, charity, secondhand, and handmade. So you can choose those categories and then get into explaining for your gift what you exactly want for your gift. There's even a calendar function for things that might require some scheduling. So for example, if you're asking, oh, I'd love some homemade meals, people can select what day they'll bring those. Or if you're looking for someone to help with dog walking, you can put a calendar of dates you'd want that, and they can opt for specific days. So it really does make this pretty streamlined and understandable, especially if you're pitching this idea to friends and family who may not understand the concept of alternative gift giving. And then next slide. And here's this is an example. I use this for my wedding. So here's a screenshot of some of the things we asked for. So again, my husband and I lived together a few years. There was not many things we needed. So we got to get creative using this registry. So one thing we asked for was a honeymoon dog sitter. So we put that as gift cards or funds, but someone also could have offered to do the dog sitting as well, and that could have been a gift of service. We were moving at the time, so just funds for moving or help with moving. And like a national park pass because we enjoy the outdoors, and that's something we can enjoy year round. So that's my personal example. Also on the So Kind Registry's website, there are multiple sample lists, whether it's weddings, babies, holidays, birthdays. We even have a thing, I don't think I have a picture of it in this presentation. There's also an option for give lists. And that is where you can make a list of the gifts you're willing to give. So instead of what you're asking for, what you want to give your loved ones. So there's where you can put exactly your skills or gifts of time that you're willing to give. So maybe you're great at instruments and want to offer music lessons, or a really great cook and want to offer homemade meals for your friends and family. That's another way, just kind of from the reverse side of maybe your friends and family don't know what alternative gifts to ask for. You can show them what you're willing to offer. Next slide. And as Kelly mentioned, we also have, or maybe it was Adoma, we have wildlife friendly weddings. So as another form of eco-friendly and sustainable celebrating, we have our wildlife friendly wedding guide. And that's because unfortunately the bad news about weddings is they can generate a lot of waste. Often the narrative is it's one day out of your life, but a lot of people are having that one day. So if each wedding is generating over, around 400 pounds of garbage and over 60 tons of CO2, that's a lot. And there's a lot of ways we can improve on that. Unfortunately, having a wildlife friendly wedding can be sustainable, budget friendly, logistically savvy, and a way to personalize your special day by showcasing your values if this is something you feel passionate about. Next slide.
I was just going to say, Sarah, you maybe want to put that in the chat too when we move on to Belinda, so people could peruse that website.
And then I like to show examples for my own wedding because I was planning my own wedding while writing the wildlife friendly guide. It was nice to do personal research for work. So I got married in an aquarium, which it's great to pick a venue that's kind of already pretty, like naturally beautiful or dynamic. It's less decorations you have to worry about. I got married in front of the shark tank, so I wasn't worried about a floral display or anything like that. I wore a used dress, so that was much cheaper, and then also saved on the raw materials that are needed for dresses. I had my bridesmaids, I just gave them a color and they could pick their own dress so that they would pick something they liked and felt comfortable in and more likely to wear again. I made seed bombs as a favor. So I used native coneflower seeds and you mix them up with paper pulp. It's a really super easy, crafty DIY. so that my guests could then take them home and plant flowers that would be good for native pollinators. And then the last picture is, instead of doing bouquets, for me and my bridesmaids, we opted for clutches. Again, so it's something they could reuse again, and then we just put a little boutonniere on them to be a little, still give it a little floral look. So all pretty easy choices. For the most part, all of them also were really budget friendly for my wedding. So that's, I think, oh, I have one more, and then I'm back to holidays. Kelley's gonna maybe get more into experiential gifts, but this is one I always like to share. So we did this a few Christmases ago when I was home for the holidays. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and I come from a long line of Philadelphia Eagles fans. So I decided to look into getting tickets for a game while I was home, and found they're way out of my price range. So did a little more looking around the website, and found out they actually offer stadium tours at their stadium for $5 a person. So way more in budget, was able to treat the whole family. And you get to see a lot of really cool behind the scenes stuff, which honestly is more appealing to me than watching a game itself. So a bunch of these pictures are us in the locker room, and the picture to the right is after my mom broke the first rule of the tour, which was don't step on the logo on the floor, because apparently it's bad luck. And the punishment was to sing the fight song in front of the whole tour, and that was delightful. It was the gift that kept giving. And then they ended up winning the Super Bowl later this year, so I couldn't have planned that timing better if I tried. But yeah, this was a really fun outing for the whole family. This is a favorite one I like to suggest if you're a sports fan. You're looking for a gift for more eco-friendly than a jersey and probably cheaper than actual tickets. And I'm going to pass it off to Belinda now.
Thanks, Sarah. I feel like I'm an attendee just for this event because I'm learning so much from all three of you. Thank you again to Kelley and Heather for inviting me to this presentation. My name is Belinda Chiu, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm an Asian American woman with dark brown hair, currently wearing a gray sweater, and I'm presenting to you today from the traditional land of the Lenape peoples, also known as Queens, New York. So I'm going to start off my presentation by talking about my childhood experience during the holiday season. So that is on the next slide. So I remember when I was growing up, during the holidays, I always remember visiting my grandparents and my aunt's house and sitting at the big family table, enjoying a big family dinner with my cousins and other relatives. During the Christmas season, which is coming up, it was always tradition for my family and I to go out and pick a Christmas tree, spend a weekend decorating it with so many ornaments that we would accumulate over the years, and we always reused it. But also making sure that our interior of our house and the exterior was also festive for visitors who would come by. My mom also ran a daycare, so at the bottom of the tree, it was always stocked full of really colorful wrapped gifts for my sister and I, as well as for the daycare kids. One specific memory that I have when I was really, really little was one of my classmates back in, I think, kindergarten or first grade would always hand out these little pouches of oatmeal and glitter and tell us that if we sprinkled it out on the sidewalk or on our lawn, it would encourage Santa's reindeer to come because it was reindeer food, and they would come and make sure that Santa came on Christmas Eve. Now in hindsight, if you go to the next slide, I realized that practicing some of these traditions were not really eco-friendly. Obviously, glitter is not very environmentally friendly with all the microplastics. So now I try to reduce waste where possible while still enjoying the holidays with my loved ones. So first I want to talk about shopping and kind of low-waste shopping now that we are right on the heels of the holiday season. Many of us might be preparing for the holiday shopping season, as many of my fellow panelists had said before. Black Friday is around the corner, and a lot of us on this in this meeting today are probably dreading that. And I know that I've already received a lot of advertisements about the Black Friday deals, but I would encourage us this year to kind of think creatively about how we're going to be doing shopping if we are going to be participating in any kind of shopping. So instead of shopping online or at big box stores for new items, we can explore other avenues. So for example, we might be able to shop at secondhand stores such as thrift stores or yard or garage sales, or even Facebook Marketplace. You can look at your local Buy Nothing store or Buy Nothing group or your Trash to Treasure groups on Facebook or any other online community forum. or you can do an ISO, also known as in search of, and see what other people are looking to give away, because who knows, something you might be looking for might be something that someone's willing to give up. You might also look to make your own DIY gifts, as Adoma had mentioned in the Simplify the Holidays website, using items that you already have at home. And you can also purchase an experiential gift, which Kelley will be talking more about later if we still have time. Next slide, please. During the holiday season, there are a lot of holiday events that you might be hosting yourself or going to. I know during COVID, it might be a little bit tricky, but if you are planning on attending or hosting parties, you know that as an event host, there might be a lot of waste that is generated just from a single event. So I shared some tips for reducing waste if you are an event host. So first of all, the biggest thing that you can do is reducing the single-use disposables. So one of the things that you can do is choosing reusables. So that means your plates, your bowls, your utensils, your napkins, all of those items can be swapped out with reusable items that you can wash at the end of the night. If you are someone who likes to prepare your own meals and serve it to your guests, you can choose to serve them in Tupperware. So at the end of the night, you can pack it up for your leftovers for the next day. As I mentioned before, instead of using paper towels or single-use napkins, choose to use cloth napkins instead. That way it can be reused after the event is over. And if you have an energy-efficient dishwasher, to run it at the end of the night. That way you're not wasting so much water in the sink. If you are an attendee at an event, I would encourage you, at least I do this personally, if I'm going to an event and I don't know if it's low waste or zero waste, I will bring my own cup or a mason jar or some kind of beverage container, and I'll also bring a utensil set. That way I know that at least I'm not producing waste when I go to someone's home. Next slide, please. So second, or actually first, to the amount of waste that can be generated from parties, there's a lot of food waste that can be made. So some tips for reducing food waste in this area is kind of planning ahead when it comes to hosting a party. If you are inviting any of your guests, you want to get a head count, so you can ask your guests to RSVP in advance so you know an accurate number of who's coming, so you can buy the correct number of ingredients so you don't over prepare so many meals that end up not getting eaten. You can let your guests know ahead of time that you have a low waste or a zero waste policy. That way, if they are planning on bringing anything to your home as like a housewarming gift or something for everyone else to enjoy, that they can be mindful of what ends up getting disposed afterward. You can invite your guests to bring containers for leftovers so they can bring it home themselves, especially if you have a small household and you can't handle eating all the leftovers on your own. Another suggestion that I would say is, instead of buying single-use containers for beverages, you can try making it yourself and serving it in a dispenser where people can kind of pour out whatever portion that they want throughout the night. If you are making meals for yourself and for your guests, I would say save the usable food scraps. So for example, if you're making mashed potatoes and you are peeling the potato peels, you might be able to use the potato peels and bake them to make potato peel chips. And if you're peeling vegetables, you can save the veggie peels for stock later on. And then of course, we want to avoid sending any kind of food to landfills or any food scraps to landfills. So if you can, at least for that night, to have a compost bin available. So any kind of organic waste ends up going into that bin to be composted later. Okay, moving on to gift wrap. If gift giving and giving material items is something that you can't give up at this time, one way that you can reduce waste during the gift giving season is how you wrap your gifts. A lot of gift wrap is made with glitter or metallic foil that's layered with paper. So any kind of multi-layered packaging is very difficult to recycle at the recycling centers. So that ends up getting thrown away. So what you can do instead is reuse the items around your home as gift wrap. So in this picture, this is actually something that I wrapped myself for a Secret Santa for one of my coworkers a few years back. I used craft paper that I had lying around from an old mail order item that I had. I had a a tree that's outside my house, and so I like clipped off a few twigs and then wrapped it with some string that I had lying around my house as well. So basically repurposing anything that we have around our home and decorating it. And if you are an artistic person, you can grab some pens and paint or something and then decorate your makeshift gift wrap. And then lastly, people who celebrate Christmas may think that having a Christmas tree is a must-have during the holiday season, but they might not know that over 15 million trees are cut down every year just during this holiday season. So I did want to share some alternatives to this. So if you are creative, Simplify the Holidays, the campaign actually does have a page on using items around the home to make a makeshift tree. So you can use books, you can use string, you can use fairy lights to make a tree of your own. That way you're using things around the house and not having to buy a tree. If you like the idea of a real tree, you can actually rent live trees that can be replanted afterward. So I would say to look up your local Christmas tree farm where you would typically buy your trees and see if they have a rental option where you can buy the tree with the roots still intact. That way you can have it in your house still live and then bring it back to them so they can replant it. And lastly, if you are buying a freshly cut tree because you have no other alternatives, remember to look for composting programs near you to see if there's a place that you can drop it off where it could be mulched after the holiday season. And now I will pass it back over to Kelley.
All right. Any word on the panel or the poll, Heather? Should we try to put it out or skip it? Still not hearing you. I will also say now is a great time to start putting questions in. So if you have any questions for us, please feel free to put them in the chat. I think we'll have a little bit of time here at the end.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, we can do the poll.
Let's do the poll. Woo!
And where did it go? Questions. Maybe.
I think Belinda also just mentioned that we have not been sharing with everybody the URLs that we thought we were. So yeah, it looks like we've only been sharing these URLs with other panelists. So maybe Heather can help us with that too. But they've also been up on the screen. How's the poll coming?
Yeah, I'm struggling with it, but I am working on it.
Okay. All right, well, I will keep going and maybe we will come back to the poll and hopefully be able to. Okay. And yeah, but we welcome everybody to put questions in the chat also, which I don't think we can see. Okay, anyway, so just to talk a little bit about happiness, right? So research shows us that making over $75,000 does not increase one's happiness, which is still a lot of money. And this is after your physiological needs are met, like food, shelter, and clothing. I kind of mentioned that earlier. But the way to life satisfaction is not through material things, but rather relationships and time spent in nature. So hopefully these pictures share that a little bit. So I mentioned at the beginning that when I was working on my master's in public health, I conducted a social and behavior change campaign for my thesis. And hopefully you're going to be able to follow me here on this graphic. But my goal was to motivate individuals to shift some purchases from material gifts, which is the sparkly gift there, to experiential gifts during the winter holidays, which is the folks walking in nature. Hopefully then it would increase time spent with friends and family and in the outdoors, leading to a boost in long-term happiness, which then overall would also support the environment by decreasing consumption. So here's the poll. All right. I will let you walk us through it, Heather.
That's great. So what type of alternative gifts have you given? And check all that apply. And so there's charity, experience, handmade, secondhand, time, and skill. So please go ahead and vote, and then we will display the results. So we have 89% in.
Ooh.
And
drum roll.
yeah, oh, it popped up on my other screen, sorry. 76% is handmade. 59% is secondhand and charity. 53% is experience, and 29% is time and skill.
All right, we got some crafty people, sounds like, and this is perfect moving into the experiential. It sounds like we've got 50% of folks that already know all this. Awesome, thank you, Heather. Okay, so others have already talked about what an experience can be, but you're seeing some other ideas here on the screen. So if you joined this webinar specifically to make Christmas lists for people, think about some of these ideas. All right. So my research showed that when thinking about giving an experiential gift to a friend, people thought the top benefit was that they were unique, different, or special. But interestingly, the top benefit to giving an experiential gift to a family member was that they provided lasting memories. So unfortunately, both friends and family experiential gifts had a similar barrier in that they are hard to give if you are in different towns. So that does make it a little bit more challenging, but can still be done. So my thesis included a pledge where somebody promised to give an experiential gift to a friends or family member, and 83% of those folks followed through on the pledge. 42% of the experiential gifts were done within 2 weeks of giving, and they rated that experience as good or excellent. And so these slides, these next couple of slides, are just showing some of what I heard, some of the success stories from people that participated. And we've already heard these ideas, right? Like giving somebody a park pass. If you're gonna do gift cards, maybe it's a park pass. Another person gave nothing, not even a stocking stuffer to her boyfriend, and thought it was really weird, but they did it. She felt very proud. This was, of course, pre-COVID, but one example that was shared was that folks went to visit family instead of buying gifts. Or this other example was where they made some coupons to do something that they gave to somebody, and they made sure to put a date on it so that that kind of overcame that scheduling barrier. So again, I know that experiential gifts can be hard during COVID, but look for these virtual classes or things that you can do outside. So on the screen, you're seeing an example of a testimonial given to us by Ashley, whose partner got her a cooking class to do over Skype with somebody that was actually in Italy. So yeah, that's pretty good example there. So, sorry. I forgot to put my personal story in. I forgot to put the slides in for my personal story. So I'm going to tell my personal story. But actually, my family grew up in retail. So my mom and dad met in Macy's in New York City, and they work together. So I grew up kind of dressing mannequins and stocking store shelves. So when I asked my mom not to give me a material gift, you know, it was a big deal and it was a real challenge. But honestly, she did great. She gave me an experiential gift. We don't live in the same town. And so, you know, she encountered all those barriers. I used the So Kind registry to make a wish list and shared that with family. But yeah, so it can be done. And this is coming from a family who loved to shop. And I grew up in Nebraska, which I forgot to say, by the way. So we grew up working in Brandeis, if anybody knows that, which then turned to Yonkers, which, you know, whatever. Okay, so we're going to close this out here really quick before we take any questions. So while we need additional policy that would make it easier to consume consciously through durable and repairable goods with an increased corporate transparency, or we need policy to build circular economies that support sharing, borrowing, and reuse, or we need policies to require companies to be accountable for the ultimate disposal of the products and packaging they put out, we really do feel individuals also have a role to play. So we'd love for you to make a pledge today to buy an alternative gift or give an alternative gift this season. And social science shows us that you're more likely to follow through on that promise if you make it public. So if you want to type in the chat, you know, what kind of alternative gift you're going to pledge to give or what type of experiential gift you're going to give, you're more likely to follow through on it. All right. And then on this slide, you're just seeing some of the links that are going to be useful to you that we walked through. Draft to social media posts, as Adoma mentioned, that you could use in your community or with your organization. And if you want to give us an additional testimonial, we always take that. So there's some links here. And then I think we're over to Q&A.
Does anyone have any questions?
I'll say a common question that we get is, you know, how do you approach this with your family? How do you begin to start talking about it? And I don't know if my fellow panelists have any ideas on how they have approached this with their family.
I know I've gotten into the habit of now just ahead of the holidays asking my parents what they want to do. Like I say, I want to take you guys out for the day. I want to do like some sort of family activity. What would you like to do? For my mom, that's like checking out some of the local arboretums or gardens with their Christmas displays, or sometimes like touring a building in the city and just going out for drinks or to eat. So sometimes if I can lock it in on a good surprise early, that's fun. But then just being straight up and asking people some of the ideas they've given, I wouldn't have thought of, but they had a good time.
I think the key is being proactive, as Sarah had mentioned. I still do struggle because my mom will come home with random stuff that she's purchased, even though we haven't asked for it. But I do have to keep in mind she's coming from a place of love. But yeah, my sister and I try to be proactive with saying like, oh, do you want to go out to eat? And using those experiential moments instead of material items.
I also remember, Kelley, on our presentation last night, I saw someone in the chat said they were going to get tickets for somewhere, like I think gardens in their hometown for their granddaughter. So it was also going to be a lure to get their granddaughter to visit as well, which I think, so it's like, you can find, it can be mutually beneficial. Last year I took my nieces and nephews to the zoo because I enjoy that more than sitting at home watching cartoons. But I think we all had fun having a nice outing, and that was still sort of COVID safe because we could be outside. So being creative, but thinking about, you know, what will have the most mass appeal.
And there is a place on the website that kind of provides you a small little paragraph of either how to talk about it or put it in an email that can guide you on how to start these conversations. And it's not easy to like go cold turkey. You know, I recommend switching out some of the holiday gifts, or, you know, trying the Secret Santa approach one year.
Yeah, I'm sort of just gonna echo that. I think sort of being understanding of like some of these changes can be kind of sudden for some people in your family, but like doing it one little thing at a time will usually get people to, you know, test out the waters and be more comfortable with it. For example, my family has been doing Secret Santa. First it started out as like a smaller thing, but now it's like pretty consistent. Like every year when we're together, we do Secret Santa, and it's a part of our like larger tradition, and it's been like a good like new tradition that we've created.
Any questions from the audience, Heather?
I am not seeing any.
Well, we can wrap up if that works for you, Heather. But
Yeah, that's fine.
I want to thank my fellow panelists. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day and joining me.
I would agree with that. I want to second that on top of Kelley. Yeah, wow, amazing. Such great information.
Thank you for the invitation. All right. Any last words, Heather, or should we log off?
Nope. I would just like to thank all of you, our webinar speakers, for participating in this webinar today. And yeah, if anyone else has any other kind of question, feel free to send an email or something to that effect, and we will follow up with it.
Boom.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.